Our rail lines in the US are busy and getting busier. Trains are seamlessly guided to their destinations every day by switches and trackside signals. And us as the traveling public largely takes this intricate jigsaw puzzle for granted, thanks to the thousands of dedicated professionals and certainly the large role played today by computers. When a dispatcher sets a route for a train, this is usually done on a computer screen, perhaps hundreds of miles away from the train. The command is given electronically, and an electric motor effortlessly changes the switch and the signal indication, and guides the train to the correct route. Computers were first employed in dispatching in my lifetime, but railroads in the US were operating safely long before the advent of computerized CTC. Let's travel back in time over 100 years and examine rail operations before the digital age. And in order to do this, we don't need a time machine, just a Metro North ticket. Located only steps from the station in South Norwalk, Connecticut, is the SONO Switch Tower Railroad Museum. The tower, which was placed in service in 1896, has now been a museum since 2003. While in operation on the New Haven Railroad for 88 years, the tower was known as Signal Station 44. And daily tasks for its operators were quite a bit more physically demanding than the jobs of today's dispatchers seated at computer terminals. In lieu of buttons and flat screens, signals and switches were controlled by these levers. They were aptly nicknamed Armstrong levers, because they would take quite a bit of elbow grease to operate. This board was the main focus of the tower operator, with each number representing one of the tower's 68 different levers, controlling switches, switch locks, and trackside signals. When a switch needed to be thrown to set a route for a train, the tower operator would throw one of these black levers, and everything was 100% mechanical, with no electric motors to help align the rails. These levers were connected to metal pipes that ran alongside the tracks on rollers just like these, and eventually connected to the moving parts of the switches themselves. Here at Signal Station 44, the furthest switch was 1/4 of a mile away from the tower, so a lot of effort was required to align that route. But simply throwing switches was far from the tower operator's only function. While the black levers were used to throw the switches themselves, the blue levers locked them in place, and the red ones controlled the signals. And while the safe operation of the tower ultimately fell on the operator, the tower itself had some ingenious safety features built in. These levers were all located on the top floor, but one floor below was the massive interlocking machine. Effectively an early type of computer, the interlocking machine had a complicated set of fail-safes built in that would prevent the operator from setting two trains on a collision course. For example, if a signal was set to red, then the corresponding levers for a switch and locking mechanism on that route would be deactivated, and the operator wouldn't be able to move the lever no matter how hard they pulled. This would prevent operators from throwing switches underneath moving trains or sending opposing traffic down the same line. Other fail-safes would prevent a signal from being set to clear if a switch wasn't properly aligned on the route ahead. It's truly amazing that this was all accomplished without any computer coding. The machine was purely mechanical. As you can imagine, there was a lot of work involved for every single train that passed by the tower. As our tour guide explained on our visit, one of the most labor-intensive procedures that this tower's operators had to contend with was moving a train to and from eastbound track number 4 and the Danbury branch. This would necessitate 14 separate levers being thrown, and when the train passed through, all 14 levers would have to be thrown back to their original positions. All of this for one train. And if you thought throwing levers for switches and signals was the full job description, think again. The operator would also record every movement on a block sheet, much like this white piece of paper sitting on the desk. And if a train's operating crew required more information than could be indicated with signals alone, train orders would be written on one of these blue sheets. And the train wouldn't stop to pick up this train order. They would be handed to the crew of the moving train on the fly. The train orders would be tied to a bamboo hoop, which the crew would catch on their arm. They would remove the paper, then throw the hoop back on the ground for the tower operator to retrieve down the line. Later, these so-called forks were used, where the operating crew would catch a piece of string with the order tied to it. Communications improved when the tower received this scissor phone in 1920. But believe it or not, paper train orders were still used on the New Haven until 1998. The tower was also tasked with monitoring the power supply to the overhead catenary. If one of the breakers seen here over the tracks was tripped, the tower would need to use this massive circuit board to attempt to restore power to the line. In 1969, Penn Central took over this line, renaming Signal Station 44 Burke Tower. Then in 1984, construction was completed on this newer yellow building, which was named Walk Tower. It took over operations from Burke and was also tasked with operating the drawbridge over the Norwalk River. And interestingly enough, the Walk Tower operator also continued to hoop up paper train orders to trains on the Danbury branch until as late as 1998. These paper clearance forms were needed since the branch still didn't have trackside signaling at the time. Eventually, Metro-North took over operations on this line and transferred most remaining operations to CTC run out of Grand Central. The SONO Tower now stands as a museum, staffed by wonderful volunteers who give all of us this fascinating glimpse into how railroads helped to build this country. Check out the links in the description below to see how you can visit this museum for yourself or make an online donation to ensure it will be around for years to come. Next, watch this video about some more railroading history that you can experience firsthand. Thank you for watching.